This is Drop Tent Media Network.
Seriously, Dad?
Seriously, Dad? Two father comedians out of Philadelphia. Seriously, Dad?
Dad? Seriously?
Dad?
Seriously? Seriously?
Yo, welcome back. Season 2. Seriously Dead.
Here we are. We're back in the
Summertime.
studio. Summertime. Is it summertime?
It is summertime. Yeah,
It
look
is.
at the tan on you. The fucking tan is it summertime.
That's why I'm a
Look at the
teacher.
tan on you. Look at the tan on this guy.
This is the part of the time when I don't know what day of the week it is. I don't care.
This is summertime. He looks like Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
I just got back from Disney, so I'm
Sure, there you go.
living the
You're
dream. You did too.
Yeah, we got that Disney glow.
We made, that is
Is that
what
what that
we
is,
got.
Disney
Yeah,
glow?
you
Wait,
just always.
that's when your bank account just goes down. You get a
Oh
Disney
my
glow.
goodness! I was very nervous about that because you can't not go to Disney and drop like serious. And we tried to be smart. We're like, okay, we're only doing 3 days. We did an Airbnb outside because we try to like stay on property because they're like, oh, you get an extra half hour in the morning and you get an extra hour at night. Like, no, I don't want to be there an extra half hour early and 2 hours. Like nothing good comes from trying to make your kids stay in the park the whole time. I mean, that's like flirting with midnight if you're Cinderella. Like somebody's gonna lose a shoe.
Yeah, he lost two of them.
We're all gonna go crazy.
He left them there.
Yeah. So it's just too much. So it's like, but I tried to be smart. We're like day in the park, day just relaxing, day back in the park because your body, like even if you prep, like there's like the amount of walking you do in a day. I think we were averaging like 23,000 steps a day. Like it's like insanity what you do. Like you can't like your body's just not, even if you're like top tier, which I am, you're just not prepared.
And they're like high pace steps, right? They're like kids that want to go on ride steps.
cooking.
You're not just like walking, you're cruising, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a whole different style of doing it. Man.
It is. Just, and your kids are older though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's different now than it was. We first went in 2012 and two drastically different trips. Like one, because in 2012, not to get into the book real quick, but like in 2012, it was like everything had to go right for us to get there because I made $29,000 a year. And Disney's so freaking expensive, man.
Yeah.
So it was
trip cost.
I had to hit up a loan shark to get money. That's how bad I wanted to go to Disney, but I felt like I was close enough financially to be able to possibly make it happen. It's like, all right, I got to call in the reserves here. So we were able to go, but a couple weeks before we left for Disney, I ruptured 2 discs in my back.
Oh shit.
So I had to have surgery and I wanted to have it as quickly as possible because I didn't want to risk like just being just jacked up in Disney. So I had surgery, I think 4 days before we left.
Wow.
And trying to take a dump right before I got on the plane, I re-ruptured one of my discs.
Oh,
and it was just a nightmare. As soon as I got to Disney, I had to go to Celebration Hospital. I got my Celebration shirt on today, but I went to Celebration Hospital and everybody was terrified because, I was still so jacked up and like I couldn't do anything. So it was like a nightmare trip. And we had so little money when we were coming back. Like I thought we were going to have to throw our suitcase out because I didn't have the money to check the bag.
Wow.
Thankfully, like one of the gate agents was super kind. It was just like he could see how bad things were.
Wow.
He's like, I got you. So ever since then, I feel like I've been obsessed with Disney.
Okay.
And getting back there has just been I've just been
like you
nuts
wanted to
about
get back there on better terms.
Yeah. And it's
you got it for like
and
less stressful trip.
And this current trip that we had last week was by far the best vacation we've had. Dude. And the best terms that we've had.
I mean, and just for the people, that's like the book you're referring to was a book you wrote. Was it from 2012?
Yeah.
It was called On Percs, and it was about your Facebook posts while you were basically drinking and on prescription drugs.
I had just stopped drinking right before that. I had a bender in Atlantic City Memorial Day weekend 2012 where I smoked crack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So at that point I was like, all right, I've got to stop. Like this is this is bad even by my standards.
Okay, time out. I've actually, you're the second person I've only known. Well, I know what crackheads is. I know, but like, did you seek it out? Did someone like go, hey, I got this thing, it's pretty fun? Did you like, were you just walking down the street and some guy was like, hey, you want, like, how the fuck did you
a lot like that. So
get the crack pipe and like, how did you do it?
Dude, it was nuts because, leading up to that, I'd been drinking all day at home and my wife went out to get me hot dogs and I just got the wheels started turning like, all right, I feel like gambling. Now at the time, like I live in Delco and Harris Chester wasn't open. So it's like, if you feel like gambling, you had to go to Atlantic City. It was maybe an hour and 20 minutes down the Atlantic City Expressway. So I was like, I'm going to go gamble. I drove down there and my wife texted me like, where are you? I got your hot dogs. I'm like, I'm a half hour outside Atlantic City. She's like, you fuck, man.
Wow.
So I went down there and I got a room by myself and I was like, all right, if I'm here, I'm already in trouble. I'm going to go for it. And I love cocaine.
Okay.
And it was like, Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. Like it was like the cocaine Clarence was like waiting outside my hotel for me. And like I had my antenna were already up. Like I knew how to spot somebody who could probably get it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know it. You know the game that way.
And so I asked this guy in a roundabout way, and he's like, "Yeah, I can get what you need." And we went to this motel, and I think it's like Absecon, which is I think outside Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And he got what I wanted, and the deal was like I would get him what he wanted, which was he wanted money for crack.
Okay.
So I tore through my coke, and it was insane. I remember like. I was like, yeah, I just want to watch the Stanley Cup final and do coke and drink all night. The guy's like, yeah, whatever, man. So I'm standing there. It was the Rangers and the Kings, and I'm watching the game. And I could tell he's not into hockey. And I'm tearing through my coke. And it's like, I'm the only one that cares about this stupid freaking game. And I tear through what I got. And he's like, well, you want some of this? And I was like, it's like, all right. And I smoked crack, and it was like, whoa, this is nuts. And it was.
Was it the type of thing where you were like, while it's happening, you're like, this is so bad.
In the back of my mind, I know that
still going.
Like, there's still like the kind of the tap dancing where I'm like, I'm just hanging out. I like to party hard, and it's like, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is bad.
This is where you've become.
And how it ends is like, when the cocaine's done, it's like,
don't you get like super down? Like
it's the worst, man.
I've seen friends like that. Like
the absolute worst.
The next day, just like they wouldn't like draw the shades in there. Like they would. Just,
I heard
like,
Molly is very similar.
Devastating.
You get so euphoric, and these chemicals go up. And then the next day, your body's ability to make those happy chemicals, it doesn't make them.
Yeah, you're just
like. So you end up staying the whole night in AC.
Yeah,
and on a whim. Like you went on a whim. Like you're just like, I'm leaving. Your wife's back home. You got kids at this point, or you guys?
I do. I had 3 kids at the time.
How old were they?
So 3. So. Like 9, like 6, and my son was 2.
Did your wife want to kill you?
Yeah, but honestly, like she was so desensitized to it at this point that her main focus was the kids.
So question for you. I've always said, do the kids know? Or do they kind of know?
I didn't think so. When I realized that they were aware how fucked up my behavior is, that's when I got sober.
That was a hurt piece. That hurt.
Yeah, that was 2017. Like after that bender in 2012, I was convinced that like, all right, I'm getting sober. But then 2 weeks later, I hurting at my desk, and the doctor's giving me painkillers. I'm like, all right, well, this is from a doctor, so this is fine.
Okay.
Still not drinking, still not doing coke, so I'm doing this. And from like 2012 on, like that was kind of like the thing where I would have like a bender every 3-6 months, but at least I wasn't drinking every day.
Yeah.
So it got to like 2017. I had just started drinking again this weekend. It was my wife's birthday. I was always like scheming for a way to reintroduce it to my wife, and things have been going pretty well.
You're drinking, you're drinking. Okay.
Yeah. And eventually she's like, do whatever you want, man. So like that week, the literal weekend that I started drinking, I started drinking on a Thursday. By Sunday, I was out. I bought a bunch of coke, and things were going well. Like I was a part of a show that got picked up the pilot by Comedy Central. And the next day we were supposed to do a radio appearance for that. So I'm feeling like this is great. Things are going better than ever. And that when I found out that night, like what I would be making for the show, I was like, oh my God. And it was like, it wasn't even a lot. Like it was maybe $1,000 a day that they were going to pay me to film, which at the time was like life-changing money.
Yeah.
So I was genuinely excited by it. And I called my kids to tell them, like, you're not going to believe this. This is what they're paying me. And like, I think the show's got a real shot to become a series. And they're all excited. And I was like, look, I'm out with my friends right now. I'll be home for dinner. I'll pick up pizza and come home. I never came home. I stayed out all night till the next morning. So the kids are waiting for pizza all friggin' night.
Oh, man.
And I never came home. And I ended up alone in a motel room by myself on I forget what it was called, but it was it used to be the Executive Inn on Baltimore Pike in Springfield.
Okay.
a place where nothing good ever happens.
Yeah.
It's like where dads go to lose their families. So I ended up there, and then I was calling my wife like, hey, I screwed up. I need you to come get me. She's like, you're on your own, man, which is what I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And around noon that day, I went home, and the kids got home from school around 3. And I opened the door, and my oldest daughter was the first one in, and she looked at me differently than she had ever looked at me before. And that was the point where I was just like, I'm going to turn it around. And fortunately, like that was like the tipping point for getting my shit together. And you know, that was 2017. So,
oh my God, I'm getting like goosebumps.
It was a powerful story.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like, it must be, I don't know what it's like for you to tell that story now, but I mean, it must be liberating. It must be like, that's not you. That guy's gone. That's it's a version of you that's in the past, but it's totally made you who you are today. And I'm sure the relationship you have with your kids now from there is proof of the hard work you've done since that moment when you said, okay, something's got to change.
And that's the way like I function, because like as like all that stuff that I just mentioned is like really bottom of the barrel shit. However, I feel like if you ask me, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
because I feel like there's a lot of people that can relate in some capacity to different elements of this.
Yes,
and I realize like that's where things really spiral out of control, is when you feel the isolation, the embarrassment, and feeling like you're out on an island with any of this stuff. And it's like, if anything that I can say can show people like similar to me, or not even similar to, just if there's something you can relate to, I want you to like have that lifeline to grab onto and just feel like you can dig yourself out.
So your kids are looking at you different. There's probably like a weird silence in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You start your journey. Did you have to earn their trust and respect? And did you have to like build that relationship back? And was that hard? As it sounds like a really difficult thing. It
is like the hardest thing was, I think when you first start to like, kind of pick up the pieces from a situation like that dire, there's so many different things that like you're trying to juggle, where it's like, for me, it was, all right, I got to go to 12-step meetings. And it's like, all right, I got to show that I'm doing this. I need everybody to be aware that like I'm taking action to correct all this bad stuff that I was doing. So it's like, I have to do that, but it's like, all right, now I also, have to like prove to my wife that I'm trustworthy. I have to prove to the kids that I'm trustworthy. I have to prove to my employer that I'm trustworthy. Because by that point, it was just, I was calling out of work, and it was just chaos. So there's all these different factors coming into play where you got to pick up the pieces. But, I feel like it becomes easier to gain momentum. Like when you can point to these, like these benchmarks where it's like, all right, I went to, a month of 12-step meetings. I didn't miss a day. It's like, all right, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So things like that, especially like when people are trying to get sober, it's easy to say like, all right, I got 3 months sober and then I fell off the wagon and just feel devastated. But it's like, all right, you have to look at it in terms of progress. It's like at this point, maybe last year, it's like you were getting fucked up every day.
Every day.
3 months in a row is a big deal. And you have to look at it objectively. Like,
and relapsing is part of it. Sorry to cut you
off.
It is. Relapsing is part of it, because I feel like the people who started these programs like AA, they know that like it's going to happen, and we're not going to look down on you. We're going to accept it.
Yeah.
And we're going to pick the way and get back to it.
It's like bombing as a comic. It's like one of those things you have to do if you're going to grow and you're going to move through. And I think people want people to succeed. Like when you find, if you're willing to say, listen, I messed up, I think there's nothing better in the world as humans than for us to say, hey, I'm falling on the sword, and everybody wants to give you another chance. Everybody wants to believe that you're going to do that. I mean, I know anybody who's listening who has someone in their life that is maybe still struggling. I have best friends that like I still haven't talked to in years, and still in the back of my heart is waiting for the day when I know they're in a place that maybe we can reconnect. And that's just a friend, like who was like a brother to me growing up.
Dad or
so I think like, we form these relationships with people, and kids, like they want, like, that's the cool thing I guess I didn't realize, is that we're superheroes to them. And even when we falter and we catch some kryptonite, it doesn't matter. They want us to get back to that. So I think that they're probably more forgiving, because the minute that they're seeing the old dad, they don't want to remember that moment.
Kids want their parents around, and they want relationships with them. And 100%, because when I had my daughter outside of wedlock and the relationship wasn't that good, my biggest fear I would tell my mom is, that my daughter's gonna grow to hate me. She was like, do you know how hard it is for a child to hate their parent? Like same thing. They want you to be the superhero. They want you to be there. They want to see you smile. They want to make you smile. They want to, she's like, that's not going to happen. You just got to be consistent, be good, be there, and you'll be golden. And I think that's 100% true. And it sounds like you've pretty much hit the nail on the head with that as well.
Yeah. And I think just personally, I know that stuff was the tip of the iceberg, because I feel like any kind of addiction issues, it's just symptomatic of a bigger issue. And I feel like I'm still unraveling the bigger issues. So, being reliable has been like one of my like primary objectives, like, as a parent, as a spouse too. But for me, the underlying issues, which kind of like, I feel like really set these things on fire and like made these issues much worse, is that like, I know I have low self-esteem.
Okay.
I'm terrified of just like, being by myself. And it's like, I think at the centerpiece of all that, it's just like, I'm kind of like, I was trying to build myself up to be what I thought people wanted. And I know that like, all right, through like not engaging in those substances, I'm able to get to the root of that issue. Whereas like now I feel like I'm aware of them. And also I've put a lot of work into those things. So I think one of my most glaring deficiencies, since getting sober, is that like, I still have a tendency to just freak the fuck out about shit. And it's like, there are times where I'll go nuclear about something that didn't need to be made into like this, mountain. Well, initially a molehill, that ended up becoming a mountain. And it's like, all right, so that's something I got to work on too.
So do you see a therapist, or is this all like meditation?
I did for a while. And I feel like in recognizing those things, like, I feel like I like what I am now, and I like who I am. And I feel like, more than anything else, I want people to be able to rely on me and to be able to feel comfortable around me, where I know like that wasn't always the case. So I know if I'm addressing those things that I mentioned, that I think, I got a pretty good thing going. And as long as I'm continuing to work on those things, like, I can keep moving forward, and like, I can be somebody who's, for example, like my daughter texted me right before we went on saying, hey, can we go to the gym? It's like, I said, yeah. And it's like, I'm 100% confident that she's confident that I'll actually go to pick her up after this podcast and go to the gym.
Yeah. You sure you don't want to go to AC?
Oh man, dude.
I think that's important, because those promises, I have a thing with my daughters now, like, because I feel guilty, not like, I've not done crack cocaine, and not yet, at least. But like, I have like, sometimes, we all have whatever it is. We all have our perceived deficiencies, and like, to your point, like, I think where you're at now is like I've mentioned before, I think there's a tuning fork we have inside that we feel. It sounds like you're feeling that, like, oh, I'm in the right direction. I can feel that I'm the person, I'm being the person I want to be, that I want people to see me as. And like, I feel like we're all chasing that. And sometimes when we're buried and we're in drugs, or we're in our head with stuff, or we're, not doing what we need to do, that gets buried, and you can't get a sense of who you are, where you're supposed to be, what's good, what's north. Like I said that about my wife, like before I met her, I just didn't know which way was north. Like, I didn't know, I wasn't calibrated properly as to like what a relationship looks like, what love looks like. And, we need something in our life to help us like get all that crap out, so that tuning fork can be like, oh, this is the path. This is who I am. And I think anything we can do to get back towards that, whether it's seeing a therapist, so that maybe you just need someone to help you get that initial stuff out, or like you said, I mean, you're channeling a lot into writing. I mean, you've put out like 4 books now?
Yeah, and I really enjoy it, and it's something that chills me out, because I'm high strung, like I'm anxious 24/7. That's another thing that I'm working on.
Me too. I already feel better. I'm like, oh my god, it's me too.
Yeah, I'm anxious 24/7, and I feel like a lot of times, like, one of the things I used to always get jammed up about is like butchering social interactions, because I feel like I can be very socially awkward, and there would be times where it's like something as simple as like, a cashier saying like, have a good day. And you're just like, thanks, me too.
Yeah.
Fuck. And it's like, I will think about this until the day I die.
Yep. Yeah.
That's on the lower end. But on the bigger end, it's like, man, there's so many times where like, I just feel socially awkward and out of place. And going back to what I said earlier, where like, I feel like just lonely, because they're through a lot of my formative years is like, I didn't have friends. And it's like I didn't get a girlfriend
that's
till later in life. Like my first girlfriend is my wife now.
nice.
So it's
Beautiful.
like it is cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Why am I the one?
It's always like with friends or girlfriends, like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with me that people do not want to be around me?
The self-esteem thing is crazy. So one, you don't strike me as someone who has a low self-esteem. But that's not, I'm not calling you a liar, don't worry. But I have a low self-esteem also. And if I say that and people say the same thing, why would you? You don't strike me as someone, but it's what's going on in here. Like here's the faceplate. And then behind the scenes, behind the curtain, there's like did I say the right thing? Like I'm sitting with my legs crossed. Is that kind of weird? Is it I'm playing with this thing? Is this made too much? Or like, and you just get into like, am I doing the right things all the time? And I feel like a lot of comedians have like those same issues.
Oh my God.
100%.
And we're the ones who go out there and we put on this front like we're cool. I'm good. I can pick on myself. I can laugh at myself. I'll tell you this messed up story about me. And I'll tell you about the time when this happened and I couldn't get a boner or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And meanwhile,
I'm a bad boner guy. Bad boner gang rise up.
And everyone's laughing and you think, oh, you gotta be so confident to be able to do it. But really, like you're kind of like
I'm terrified.
I don't even know why I'm doing it. I could just not do this and not be scared at all. It's a really weird thing that we all do in our heads.
Oh, no, you're right.
Dude, I'm with you, man. And I think what I've arrived at is that like I don't know that like the anxiety stuff is going to ever go away. However, I'm not going to allow it to prevent me from doing what I want to do.
There you go.
And I think that's the win.
That's the win.
And the same thing with like, I'm a hypersensitive person. I think that's great. The only time it becomes an issue is like when I'm reactive. I'm reactive to my sensitivity,
blowing up
where it's just like not everything is about me, and that's something that is a constant work for me. It's like I have to stop being like so self-centered with things and just realize like, all right, that wasn't about me. I need to leave that alone.
Is that what they call spotlight syndrome? Is that what that is? You think everyone
sounds appropriate?
It sounds right? Yeah. If it's not, I'm sure Neil could get a Google on that. But you feel like everyone's looking at me. Like you walk in the coffee shop, the bell goes ding-ling, and you feel like they all just looked at me.
Yeah,
they don't give a fuck.
I know. It's like
they don't care. Like you are not Channing Tatum. No one gives a shit. You're like, they're all looking at me. Do I want a draft or a latte? And it's like, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah. Gosh, check it out. There's a balding 45-year-old man walking. Let's see what he orders.
I stopped into Chipotle on the way to the show yesterday, and like nobody was in there. Like it was pretty low key, but she got up, and I don't go to Chipotle a lot, and she's just like, okay, what next? I'm like, I was so overwhelmed with what the next choice was, and I didn't want to mess up that I totally did not get what I wanted because I was just like, I should know this, and I'm like, and I'm just the anxiety of something as simple as ordering Chipotle.
Food,
like,
did you think about running out of there?
Stressful. I did. I was like, I don't even want this. I was like, let me pay for it and leave and not get it. Because I'm a people pleaser too. So I'm going like, what do you think I should have? Like your hands are going somewhere. But I was funny because right before that, I was sitting in a park and ride off of 95 in like Virginia. I had a therapy appointment and we do it via Zoom. So I'm like, and she's like, why are you in your car? I'm like, oh, I was on the road. I didn't want to not have the appointment. Yeah. So I'm like sitting there and we're talking about all this same stuff. She's like, oh, wow. Like, I've been working with her for years now, even before I did comedy. And she's like, it's amazing. We're talking about the person I had met there and how I was staying down. She's like, amazing the people you've met and how the relationships you formed with people now versus like when we first started dealing together. Cause I was a big coach for sports and stuff like that at school sports. And there was a big thing at my school, a lot of competitive sports, trying to be state champions. And I always tried so hard to fit in with these guys. I'd go to the poker nights. I'd go to the coaches meetings, the bowling, like whatever, out drinking, ended up in a strip club at night, like all of that stuff. And I never felt like I fit in. Every interaction, I felt like I was just trying to either prove myself or make sure I didn't look like an idiot or why did I bet on that hand and they would get, and I was
going through life trying not to look like an idiot is probably the worst thing you can do.
Nuts. It's not.
It's just because you're just going to not do anything because we're all idiots.
But my theory is all of those people that I was around then were the same kind of people. Like they were also in my mind super insecure. And it wasn't until I started hanging out with artists, with people who were like putting themselves out on stage, putting themselves out through, things like writing books, like who were saying like, let me shine a light on myself because I know there's other people out there that feel this and we can crack a few jokes about it because, comedy is tragedy plus time. And I think once that popped off for me. I was like, oh wow. So like hearing you say all that you've said for me personally was just like one affirmation of that hour.
Thank you. Thank you. So I feel the same way. Thank you so much.
And just personally like that, I've made the right choices in my life now so that my daughters are always going to see the version of me that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
You know, because that's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you wanted. You wanted your daughters and your son to be proud of, you know, who their dad is and want to text you and say, hey, let's go to the gym.
Yeah. It's funny, like how I think kids are infinitely smarter than I think you might think. Like if there's like a dinner party and there's a kid around, it's like, you might be like, yeah, they're absorbing everything.
They're taking it. They know everything.
And on top of that too, I think, especially now, kids are more emotionally intelligent than ever. Whereas, you know, back, you know, I'm 45. I think, you know, when I was a kid, there was no such, you know, I don't fault my parents for a lot of things that I think could have been done differently, just because they just didn't know. That's like in hindsight, if they had the benefit of me being born in this era, I know they would have done a lot of things differently. Yeah. But it's like, I can't fault them for it because there's just no awareness of that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that might also be a burden that the kids have now is like, they're much more emotionally intelligent. And I think they understand, they're more inclined to understand that like, we're figuring this out as we go too. Because I remember when I was a kid, I'm thinking like, you just assume your dad has been a dad forever.
He knows all this.
Yeah. Where I think this generation, like they might understand that like, oh, okay, like they're probably figuring it out too.
Yeah.
I learned that about I watched my mother grow a lot. I noticed it, you know, for maybe like 14 on when I was like really paying attention, but she's a great woman, but she's a very different person than she was when I was 14 years old. And same thing, like if she could pick up now what she knows now when I was 14, right? I wish I knew what I know now when I was younger type of deal. It would have been a different book that was written on that one. You know what I mean? But they're just figuring it out also. It's fucking tough, man.
So now there's a topic I wanted to bring up to see, and this is like fits perfectly within this because there's a story that came up and it's been very like for me, an issue with and right about your son's age where the school district next to me that my next door neighbor actually teaches at has a big scandal that hit national news recently where a group of middle schoolers created fake TikTok accounts impersonating 25 of their teachers, like at the middle school level. And not only did they make these to make them look like it was the teacher official title, email almost looked the same with like a letter off. And they created, you know, slanderous stuff. They're posting pornographic stuff, pedophilia stuff, homophobic stuff, as if they were the teacher. And then they're commenting on each other's posts. Like it was this onslaught of like just slanderous stuff. So we're talking about kids being more emotionally prepared, but then at the same time, now what happens is they have these devices and now they could uproot a whole person. Now these teachers the school district said they're protected by the First Amendment. And so because they were on their own personal device and off of school property, they can't really hold them accountable. And so now, you know, these teachers now are going to have to file lawsuits for defamation of character, but now their whole lives are being uprooted. Money's being spent, time, stress, emotional currency, because a few 13-year-olds were tapping a device and clearly their parents gave them this device without even it's like giving them a loaded weapon with no supervision. So that's what's scary about it is you're right. They are more emotionally tuned in and they're more privy to what's going on. And it's giving them the gall to do something like this. Could you imagine if you found out that your son was someone who had like created an account, was taking part in this and was like, I mean, that's like the new age finding your kids doing drugs.
That's what everyone's upset with TikTok right now, right? It's like, it's too much, you know, with the AI shit where you can make it look like I'm saying something that I didn't say.
100%.
Right? Every time I open my phone, LeBron James is talking shit about Michael Jordan. He's not, but they set it out where he's like, I'm better than that motherfucker. And they wanted to ban TikTok, and there's a whole thing about that because it's getting out of control.
Well, it's a bigger issue. So it's not like you can't ban whatever it is. There's a bigger issue happening, which I think is the fact that kids are exposed to so much more, but parents aren't having, or maybe they're not around to have the conversations, or maybe because they didn't grow up in this era, to them, that doesn't even, to your average parent who maybe is 45 years or older, that couldn't even imagine a world that, because for us, somebody would have passed around a funny sketch that somebody drew like a character about Mr. Jones, and it would have like had a funny face and would have said, I like kids and whatever. And then you'd like write something on the bathroom stall and it would have been in a very controlled environment. But these kids are like putting out of the toothpaste tube, and you can't put that shit back in the tube. Now it's out in the world. They posted it on the internet. Like, it is forever out there. And like, to me, like, do you check your kids' devices at all? Do you like, or do they?
I don't. I get why people do.
Yeah.
Like, I have not. So, hopefully, things are on the up and up.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nuts because I know, like, I know what I was doing. Like, I didn't have the internet, like, when I was a kid. Like, my first exposure to the internet, I was a senior in high school. And I went over my buddy Danny's house. Yeah. I went over my buddy Danny's house. He's like, you go in the chat rooms, you can talk to these people. I'm like,
there's hot girls in there.
They
weren't
there's
girls.
50-year-old men as hot girls.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
ASF or ASL,
ASL,
age,
where
sex,
you at?
location.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I couldn't imagine because there's no cutoff. Because, in the early 90s, like when I was, in grade school, when I felt like the most difficult period of my life, aside from the time where I was in Atlantic City smoking crack, was like a kid when I didn't have any friends. And I had the benefit of having a cutoff in worlds. And what I mean by that is like my school world was my school world. And there was no continuation of that when I got home because they were both separated.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like for kids in 2024, the days never end. The day is essentially, your life is essentially one continuous day where everybody can contact you at any time. It's if you have beef at school, you're going to have beef at home, and you're going to have beef at home. It's going to continue with the beef at school. Yep. So there's never a chance for, any kind of, technological breather for kids. Yeah. And on top of that too, it's like not having a technological breather leads to emotional overload. When you're emotionally overloaded, you're going to make more rash decisions on top of having a still forming brain.
Yeah,
so I think it's harder. And it's harder to hold kids accountable for shit because it's like they have all these different factors like pushing them towards, adhering to like certain standards that they see, on the internet or, becoming more inclined to give in to peer pressure because you can't have a moment where you're just not going to be able to just tune everything out and just sit and stare at the wall.
Be at peace.
There's never that.
And for a lot of families, mom and dad are just as bad, right? Mm-hmm. Even if they're not playing on TikTok, the work email, the time cards they have to approve. It's still like they're looking at a phone, never separating work from home.
Yep.
And it's just
that's me. That's me.
And I feel guilty about that shit because like I do it so much. And like when we got back from Disney, like I said to my wife, like it was the most relaxing vacation I've had, and like I feel like I was able to like try to sort some things out that are really jamming me up right now. Like I mentioned, I'm high strung. I know a part of that is like, I never turn off like what my work is like. So like with putting a book together, like I self-publish everything. So there's just, a lot of little details that I got to get lined up. And then it's constant emails and, formatting things and shit like that. And I feel like, I'll start that from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And it's no good for anybody. And I know it just leads to everybody in the house like being apprehensive about approaching me about something because they know I'm working on something.
Dad could fly off.
Where it's just like, and it's like there's got to be like a set time schedule as though I'm going to an office where people know that like, okay, from like at 6 o'clock, the work shit's done. And it's like we could have a normal conversation where I don't feel like I'm interrupting him.
Yeah.
I just got diagnosed with ADHD. It sounds like you have a lot of the stuff that I was going through. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been like checked out for anything, but that was a lot of stuff. Mine just constantly racing more. Like, are you writing jokes all day long?
Yeah, I feel like there's always something where it's
always just more. Fix that, do better, and just like go, never stopping.
Yeah, and it's I kind of like it, but at the same time, like I don't feel like. I don't know this the way that I feel now. I think that's part of another thing that led to like me like seeking out all these substances was like I just wanted to find a way to like change the way my brain worked.
I mean, you wanted to sit in a room and just watch. All you wanted to do was watch the Stanley Cup.
That's it. Yeah, with smoke crack with a stranger. Yeah,
in here. Where did this crack come from? But you just it's like you just wanted to like slow things down and get away. Kinda. I mean, the crack doesn't really slow things down, but because I took medicine. They gave me medicine for the Adderall for the ADHD.
When are you gonna take it?
But and when I started taking it, that was the first thing I noticed is it all just slowed down. I was like, holy shit, this is like amazing. Like it slowed down. Like, and I don't want to call them voices, but the wheels stopped turning as fast. And I was like, holy shit. Like I'm cool. I'm good. I think I'm getting kind of used to the stuff, and now it's kind of churning again. I'm not going to up the dosage because I don't want to start playing a dangerous game, but it does slow things down where I can just be in moments that I normally was thinking myself out of. And it was
there's a thing called marijuana too. Have you ever?
I do like that as well.
Well, I think during the pandemic, everybody experienced a level of not separating things. Like everything just meshed. Like the days went into days and nobody knew, like even people are working from home now all of a sudden, which for a lot of people is a new concept
and dangerous.
How do you separate? How do you set boundaries? And I know for myself as a teacher, like, so we took the 2 week for us when we went down, my wife and I are both teachers. School was out. Father's Day, and day after Father's Day, we took 2 week road trip. So we made it down to Disney, but we took our time getting down there.
Nice.
Wanted to do a road trip because to me that was childhood. Something about being in a car. Are we there yet? Like all of that I wanted to have for my kids. And so we did this long trip. It was great. I was super happy with how relaxed we were. We didn't try to do too much in a day. We get back and now I still have all this summer left. It's July 1st. I still have almost 2 months left. And I got in this pattern of like where the girls were off at like sports camp from like 8 to 1 o'clock. And I didn't know how to like use my times. I had to say to myself, I got to structure it because when they get home at 1, I don't want them to think like I'm still in a rut of like doing stuff for the comedy school I work for, doing like my own joke writing or networking, updating my website, looking at social media, because I could get into a rhythm like that too, where I'm always on it. Yeah. And now either they're not going to approach me. I don't want to get to a level where they don't even want to try to approach me because they're
that's
like, oh,
bad. That's bad.
He's sucked in. And so like, that was the hardest thing, was setting boundaries for myself because I was so depressed. I was like the first week back, I was like so in my head because I was just like, I didn't get anything done I wanted to. I didn't use my time wisely. And I just felt like shit. And it was like until I had to like set parameters because I'm still working on it now because it's only been a week since that week happened. And now I'm like, oh, and this is how my life's going to be because I'm not teaching full time next year. I'm trying to make some adjustments there. So nice. I'm going to get that time every day now. I'm going to get that 8 to 12. I'm only going to be teaching like 12 to 3 now.
Nice.
So like, I'm going to have, so now I got to say to myself, okay, you got to really set a structure, like get up and do some meditate. That's the one thing I'm trying to do the, like, there was a commercial that came on. It's for Calm. It's this app for Calm. It's like, do nothing for 15 seconds. And I was like, can I do that? I don't think I could do that. Yeah. No. And I said to myself for the 15-second commercial, I legit just let the commercial take me. And it felt so good for those 13 seconds.
There's marijuana for that too.
I was like, oh my God, I really do need to just, when I wake up in the morning, find one of those apps or even just the meditation and just sit in bed and like do the breathing and the body scan bullshit, because it isn't bullshit. It's like, and until you like do that, we can just be a hamster on a fucking wheel.
So 2 things. I used to work in, and I agree with you. And I used to work in sales when I lived in upstate New York. And there's no office. You're working from your house. Back then you had to get a printer, I think a fax machine, a computer, like all this stuff, right? And the guy who was my trainer, he said, get up and go to work. And I'm like, he's like, no, get up, get dressed, leave your house, go find a Starbucks, go find a Panera Bread, go to a park, go to work. Because if you just start working in your house, and this was before all this remote digital shit, he's like, you're going to get trapped and you're going to find yourself as on the rat wheel. Everything you're going to do is just going to be centered around work because you're always there to work. He's like, get up, leave, and then come home. And then you're done working. Don't be the guy who's doing the thing at the gym, sending the email, because you're going to get trapped. And that guy was before his time because we clearly have gotten, a lot of us have got there. The second thing is, you talk about doing nothing. We went on vacation. We were in Arizona in the middle of the fucking desert. And if you've never been to Arizona, fucking go. It's beautiful. Cell phones don't work. We had no electricity in where we stayed. We stayed in the middle of the desert on a Native American reservation.
Sitting on an ice cube? Jesus.
Pretty much. But it's kind of tough. You want to check your phone. You want to check someone. And then you realize, like, put that shit and just be in these moments. Like, it's beautiful out here. Like, be in the moment. Go take a hike. Go swim in some open water you never swam. And like, it was amazing. It was so good. It was so good because no one could reach me. Fuck it. I can't reach anyone else.
You realize it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's
the world's still turning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
There was a resurgence of that, and like it was a tragedy, but like there was a Hurricane Maria that happened in Puerto Rico, like I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago, and you know Puerto Rico is just like the United States. Like they were saying that the kids there all of a sudden now, because the infrastructure did not get rebuilt fast, so a lot of kids were back out riding bikes, they're playing board games, or all of a sudden. I think there's gonna at some point. I think the world course corrects itself. So
I think I
whether those kind of things happen, so that it kind of resets ourselves, or we find ourselves in a position where we're like, oh yeah, remember when we just did that? Remember when the power went out? Like, I think those moments are coming. I don't know if that's just because I used to like to watch The Walking Dead, but I feel like the world's going to course correct itself at some point if we get too far crazy.
One would hope.
But I think enough people can find those moments now where you go to an Airbnb, get off the grid.
Basically.
Me and my best friend from high school, he's that kind of guy. Like, he'll not return a text message for weeks, and he'll like intentionally keep himself off the grid. And it worked for him because he had battled alcoholism for a while after college, and it really went down a bad path for him. And I saw him in a light I'd never seen him. And I've been with him through some shit, and now he's on the other side, and he's got his doctorate. He's teaching for NYU right now. He's up in New York City.
Swinging dick.
And so this weekend we're going off the grid. We got an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere in Jersey. I'm picking him up in the city on Thursday. And we're just going away for 2 days to just get off the grid and just try to get back to what he and I used to do. We used to sit in Spanish class it was 1999 because we drew this big photo of all the sports we were going to play that weekend, and we called it Barbecue 99. And we just like did all this stuff, and now it's going to be Barbecue 24, 25 years later, and we're just that's what this weekend's going to be about. It's just going to be like, get off the grid. We didn't care if the place had Wi-Fi. And just kind of, because
the world's going to keep on turning. People are still going to do what they do, and everything will be fine.
Yeah,
everything will totally be fine. I have a question for you. So, your daughter's getting ready to go to college.
Yeah.
Have you had a conversation? Is there concern about like substance? I won't say abuse, but like, she's going to college. They're probably going to party. Things are going to come up. Have you had like a conversation of like your world and what you went through and how it got there?
Or like are you as honest with them? Are you about like how you've been with us?
And I have been. And like, she's a very intelligent person. She's also, very forgiving. And she was actually, it meant a lot. She bought a copy of this. Like, I was going through like, I was going through like my website to like print out shipping labels and stuff. And she was one of the first people I noticed that bought the book. So it meant a lot to me that she did that. And
she's like, Dad, can I borrow some money?
So I mean, she's pretty aware, and I think one of the things that like I like, love, and respect about her is that we're on really good terms right now, and we butted heads a lot. A lot of things. It's been because of my behavior, but right now we're on really good terms. So I think she's seen and she's aware of like the worst possibilities out there. And she knows how destructive, engaging in this kind of shit can be because, she's had me firsthand. Yeah. Fortunately, like things have worked out. I know not everybody gets lucky like I did because like my life revolved around pills for close to 3 years. And I just got lucky that I was able to stop. I know not everybody has that luxury. Yeah. There were times where I would be nodding out and just,
at the wrong times.
It's just brutal, man.
Cheerleading competition or the softball.
It was that. Yeah. Yeah, there was a time where like I remember like this was one of the low points where like I took my kids to like a play and like I was nodding out like at the play. Oh my God. And it's so like they've seen that kind of horrific shit.
And it wasn't because you were sleepy or bored.
No. It's like, I can play it off like, I need a nap,
it's so boring, isn't it? Yeah.
Wait, I just did that at Despicable Me 4 the other day.
Well, it takes a while for the minions to appear on screen, so I get that, man. So when they're on, it's like,
funny again.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, she's aware of all that, and she's somebody that I feel like we've had some very honest conversations about shit.
Good.
And one of the things I wanted to give her, like when she graduated high school, because for the longest time, like money was tight, so I felt like I didn't have a lot to give her financially. So one of the things I wanted to give her when she graduated college or from high school was just this kind of like list that I compiled of just like life lessons that I think would be a good head start that I didn't feel like I had. So I feel like, having that, that kind of opened the door for, being open and honest about things, because, I want her to know like all these like practical things, like, start saving money as soon as possible,
Right.
because it's going to make all the difference down the road, to things like, substance abuse and just, addressing like, taking care of like your own needs. Because when you're a people pleaser, it's just like, you want to make sure everybody else is cared for, where you could be total chaos. Yeah. It's like, you have to have your own shit figured out before you could reach your hand out to anybody else to help them up.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have candid conversations? Do you guys have like talks? Like, do they ask you questions about things, or have you guys not?
With my oldest, yeah, I think she's more inclined. Like, my middle daughter, like, she's more reserved, and my son is just like hyper reserved. So with them, I feel like I got to kind of like get a feel for what they might be going through right now, and just say like, look out for this shit. Whether it's, even if it's not substance stuff, it can just be like relationship stuff, not just necessarily romantic relationship, but like friendships. Because
friends,
people get so fucking like, for no reason, like your friend group will drop you, and you're just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Or like, what is this? Yeah.
Group chat. Yeah.
And it's like, then you got to go to school the next day and see all them, and then everybody's looking at you, not sitting with them at the friggin' cafeteria. Right. And they're just like,
that's your world. Like, when you're that age, that's
what else do you have?
That's your world.
So you may know this, given your teacher. Substance abuse numbers and like with kids, are they doing a lot, or is it kind of?
I mean, we have kids that are leaving for rehab a lot. Like my wife's had students in the past that have had to go out for rehab, and yes, you get an email saying, "Hey, so and so," they'll tell you why, but like, so and so is going to need their work, or make sure it's posted online now, or whatever the cases be. Or back in the day, their parents, somebody would be coming in to get work for them for the next month, or whatever the case may be. You have kids actively coming into school high as it is, or going to vape in the bathrooms, or drug deals are happening. Like, there's all sorts of things that are happening every day. It's like, yeah, it's at school, like, and that's any school. My school's like a great school, like, but like in any school, in any environment, there's going to be those things. It's a microcosm of society.
Drugs exist in every community,
but like, and like silly stuff. But even like I went to Catholic school. We'd all go smoke at this abandoned house around the corner before school and have a cigarette, and like, or I caught a kid chewing in my class one time. He had like one of those
a Zin or something.
No, it was like it was like the bandits, like the pouches or whatever, but he had like a big lip in, and I'm just like,
and at that age, he's just doing it for attention, right?
Well, I think you were just doing it to probably because his body had gotten a response where he was stressed, and that was something that probably calmed him down. So it becomes a mechanism that they learn in their life because maybe their parents do it, and then it's lying around at the house, and then all of a sudden you try it and you develop a dependency on it, and a moment strikes where you're stressed out or whatever, and you want to do it. So I think we all learn these behaviors, and we're just trying to figure out ways to help us deal with it. And whether a doctor prescribes it, or you prescribe it for yourself, or somebody prescribed it for another person, and you're like, well, I have that, so I saw on WebMD, maybe I should take that.
Yeah.
I think you can convince yourself of anything. And, like you said, you could be a person that maybe does crack cocaine all of a sudden, and you would have never dreamed in your life you would have found yourself in a position to do some of those things. I think we all find ourselves in those situations. That's life. You're going to find yourself in a situation you never imagined. Like those kids that like did all that stuff on TikTok for their, like, again, I think there were probably some of those kids who wanted to be on the in with the friend group. So there was somebody who had this terrible idea, and there's others that were like, well, I want to fit in. I don't want to be, nobody's going to know I'm doing a fake email. Nobody will ever figure it out. And you're willing to, and your brain, if like you were saying earlier, the brain of a teenager is not developed yet. The executive functioning skills that tell you, hey, this maybe is not a good idea. That's getting, it's not developed yet. And you can convince yourself to do anything when you think you're going to get acceptance or fit in, or fourth grade I was there at a club called the Jordan Tears at this school. I went to 7 different schools, so I moved to this school. I wanted to fit in, but you had to have Air Jordans. Well, I had Kmart sneakers. Like I didn't have like Air Jordans, and I wanted it so bad that I repressed this memory. But my first paycheck as a teacher, like 10 years later,
Jordan.
I went and bought a pair of Jordans. Shittiest
Oh,
sneakers
yeah,
I
baby.
ever had in my
Yeah.
life.
Probably
The
what I
most
think.
disappointing. It was just the perfect lesson for like, it meant nothing, but in my brain, it was prestige.
most
It was
important
something,
thing.
and it really wasn't anything. And you can't tell anybody in that moment, like even your kids, like you could tell them that advice, but when they're in the moment, they can't hear it. I can't tell my daughter today, like, don't be nervous. Like in my head, I was like, please don't coach her. Like as she was doing the rehearsal for me, because she was doing this Little Miss Kimberton fair, and she's such a shy girl that I was nervous that when it got to the interview portion and she had to explain why she liked the fair, that she was gonna not do it.
Vomit.
And she had the cards, and so she practiced for me. And I so badly wanted to be like, see, there's nothing to worry about. I had coach her, and that would have been the worst thing to do. So all I had to do is build her up. The best thing you can do for your kids is build their self-confidence so that they're not looking for all the things that we have that we talked about today. The best antidote for that is to just build their confidence and be like, wow, baby, that was amazing. You did so well. I'm so excited. They're going to love it. You know, whatever I can do to give her that positive talk, because I feel like I wasn't getting that, and not that my parents were negative talking. I think they were just projecting their own fears. And like you said, kids are tuned into everything. So, you know, like I grew up in a weird area where I couldn't tell people who my family was. I couldn't say that I had these two moms. I had to lie. And whoever was around me, it was a different story. Oh, that's just her friend, or oh, that's a friend from work, or oh, that's her sister from and I had to keep, nobody was telling me to lie. We didn't have a war room in the house where we're like, all right, this is how we're approaching this new neighborhood we're moving in. Here's your dossier. This is who you are. It's like Despicable Me 4 when they go, they're in like witness protection. I was like, but it was, I was absorbing their energy to tell me that, oh, I was taking their lead about how my mom would introduce her partner. Because that's what the area we were in. And I was just being perceptive that I had to lie. And I think that carried that with me to a point where I just lied about anything. I could lie. You'd never know if I was telling the truth because I just got so good.
It's so numb to lie.
And I was just lying because I thought that's what I was supposed to. I thought I was protecting my family. And when you learn bad behaviors like that, or you get projected on that you have to do that, like that's dangerous.
That's the best thing I go to therapy once a week. The best thing I get from therapy is the therapist will always be like, who cares? Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And if you talk about writing the messages to your daughter in the lessons, what's the big deal? Like, and then what? You know, you're like, well, I just didn't want to do this, you know, and then she goes, and then what would have happened? I'd be go, oh, well, you know, they would think I was okay. And what's the big deal? And then you realize, like, well, what is it? Why am I making this a big fucking deal? For your kids, you know, if I could teach my daughters one thing, it's like, it's none of this is a big deal. None of this. I mean, okay, some things are going to be a big deal, but for the most of it, 90% of your life at this age, none of it is a big deal. So like, live it, do what makes you happy,
dude. And that's like, I think that's one of the things that now that we're having this conversation that I want to like, you know, initiate more of is just the importance of like, it doesn't matter. Like there is definitely a scale of importance, but at the same time, you know, I have I'm like a puppy, like emotionally, like I'm still like a puppy. I feel like I'm a well-trained puppy at this point, but at the same time, like there were some points, even like deep into like my 30s, where thinking like, oh my God, this is ruined. Like there's no coming back from this, where it's just like, I know now it's like, that's not the case. Like none of it matters. Like there's very few things that actually, I don't know, have a supreme importance where you got to hit the fucking, you know, DEFCON 4 buzzer on.
Yeah.
And that, you know,
right.
But when you're a kid, it's like, you know, everything is at that level.
Yeah.
Like
I can't sit at this table. I need Jordans. I don't want to see people see me talking to this girl. And none of that fucking matters, but it builds, it's part of our development. And if you carry that into adulthood, you live a life where that shit is a big deal. And then you do have a low self-esteem and you don't want to go places by yourself and you're getting worked up and you experience anxiety. A lot of that starts from when you're a kid, like you said, absorbing the energy and thinking that things are bigger than they really are. Yeah.
I remember having, not remember, but it was only a few weeks ago where I had a conversation with a friend on just like a day-to-day outlook on things. And like I told him, it's like, I feel like everything's happening for me. Like I'm not insane to the point where I feel like there's nobody else in this world and I'm the only person that matters. However, I feel like my world is unfolding. My actions have a direct impact on every person that I interact with. So I feel like everything that I say, everything that I do, has a direct impact on my world.
Mhm.
And I think that, having kids understand that, and that, most people don't matter. Everybody matters to a certain degree, but at the same time, you can make them out to be as big or as small as you want in your brain. But at the same time, it's, there's very little that actually matters. And if you focused on the things that really matter, it's the people in front of you, the people that you're going to interact with on a daily basis, and what you have to do to survive. Those are the things that I think have to take precedence over everything else. And then just kind of not mute everything, but kind of like try to keep things more in perspective. And it gets much easier as you get older. But until you reach like middle age, I think that's really difficult to get a grasp on.
Yeah, I think the best saying I've ever heard was like, when you focus on the problem increases. When you focus on the solution increases. Like whenever you are in a situation where you're like, is this something? Then you just focus on what you think the answer to that is. Or, you put it in, because I was even have the same issue where like I was washing dishes and a bowl like fell over and fell on the floor. I just got so mad, and I'm like, why am I so mad? Like, because I'm like, well, you didn't do it orderly enough, so clearly you didn't do it right because it fell on the floor.
Yeah,
and I'm just like blew up, and I'm just like, wow, like it was just the moment of like, wow, like dude, you let yourself get to this point, like your perception of what matters right now is so skewed.
Well, that's what I say that to my a basketball coach said it to me. And I think a more famous basketball coach said it, but okay, I'm probably fucking up. Well, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And I said to my kid all the time, that's not a big deal. Sometimes the girls start bickering to one another, or so. I go, how is this any of this a big deal? You got to learn to control these. Like don't feel it, but don't let it take over you. Yeah, you drop the ball, get a little. It's a little frustrating, but what are you going to do now that you've experienced a frustration? Is it going to spiral into anger and like I'm a failure? Or are you going to laugh and go, that was fucking stupid?
Yeah, and you can't tell your kid that, because they're like, fuck you, Dad. They just stop listening like 10 seconds ago. But it's like that's the frustrating part, is like how can I project that without having to say that? Or how can I, like, even with the kids, like earlier, I don't think the answer is that you have to check your kids' phones, but I think the answer is that you have to create an environment where they know that what they're doing on there is something that everybody should be able to see, or that your parents should be able to see what you're doing. I think it's like once we get to the bigger issue of identifying our own emotions, or identifying like what we should be doing with our time and how we spend our time and being healthy, like those are the conversations. Instead of like being reactive, we want to be proactive. Let's talk about how are we spending our day doing healthy things? Are we putting healthy? I would agree. If we do that, then we're not always playing defense. That's probably the biggest thing, is to play offense more than defense. And because then you're enjoying your time together, and you're going to the gym, and you're making sure you bring the pizza home this time. Some of those things. And like you like to gamble, then bet on who's going to win on the Buzz Lightyear ride in Magic Kingdom, or like whatever. Like you do those things, and now we can be healthy and have fun together, and do those things.
I was just curious. Your daughter bought on Percs. Is she already got Delco Dirt Ball? Has she already got the new one?
No, this just came 2 days ago.
Right? Yeah.
So my new book just arrived 2 days ago.
Is it out now, or is it pre-sales just under, right?
So today's the last day for pre-order. I'm mailing them out already. This is just the last day, because I have certain
so this will air in 2 weeks. So by the time you're hearing this, get out there and
go buy
Dirt Ball.
Yeah, and it's my first novel. It's set in my beloved hometown of Delco, PA.
Okay.
It's filled with degenerate dirt balls.
Okay.
So there's different kinds of dirt balls, and I wanted to showcase as many of them as possible.
So it's like, is it a story within it? Like there are many stories within the story.
So a lot of the things I talked about, feeling like low self-esteem, feeling as though like it's hard, feeling as though you're never going to get ahead, feeling as though something's always weighting you down, is common themes within the story, because it revolves around two characters these guys, Fats and Tommy, whose lives just revolve around getting fucked up, getting chicks, and then also the 2 months of the year that they work at Halloween Adventure. It's all they had. They're really good at it, but it's like they can only find part-time employment. That's what they're really good at.
Yeah.
And on their on Halloween, their last day of work for the year, they go into work and their boss has been murdered overnight. And they're wanted for the murder. Initially, they're thought of as the murderers, so they got to try to escape. And as luck would have it, Tommy's estranged father wants him to cash a slip and fall check because he's unable to cash checks at any of the financial establishments in Delco because of fraudulent activity. So while they're being hunted down for cops for this murder that they did not commit, they're trying to make their way to his estranged father's house to grab the check. Then they got to cash it and then hopefully get their money to be able to get out of Delco until the dust settles and it's determined that they didn't do it.
I feel like growing up in Scranton must have been like a lot like Delco. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's like half the people I grew up with. There's like, I love the like, because it's going to be something anybody can identify with, especially if you grew up in an area like that where you're like salt of the earth people that are just trying to figure out like, and you said like we're these two guys that are just living off of like I don't want to say hedonism, but like
it is,
yeah,
because
like,
when you don't have your basic needs met, you have to resort to that kind of shit. It's like you have to resort to the most surefire instant pleasure you can resort to.
And we all know those dudes. That's the other thing. We all have it. Were Fats and who? What is it?
Fats and Tommy. And
we all know Fats.
Yeah.
We all know a Fats and Tommy. We'll have a version of at least of Fats and Tommy in our life. They're probably really tight, and they're always kind of just doing like this shit. And you're like, I don't even know how you're alive, dude. Like, what's going on with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And that's them. They're 30 and they share bunk beds because they can't afford real beds.
There you go.
So, and it's, there were so many, and there's still times like that. Like I'm not fully out of the weeds yet, but for the longest point in my life, like I felt like constrained by finances, and where a big part of it was, I was weighting myself down with a lot of shit a lot of thoughts I had, a lot of behaviors I was exhibiting. And it wasn't until like I started to like kind of shed those where I started to move forward. And I feel like that's reflective in a lot of the characters here is like, they all feel like they have to have some kind of grift and some kind of angle to get ahead.
Yeah.
And, when you're backed into a corner, like that's kind of what you take on as like a defense mechanism. It's like, growing up in the family that I grew up in, the only way it seemed out of like what we experienced was a slip and fall check, where it's like you had to have something, some incredible accident where it's like, oh man, you hear so-and-so got 60 grand for her accident. It's like, oh man, it must be nice, man.
Yeah.
And I had an aunt, I'll never forget, like my aunt Elvira was one of the worst people on the planet. And I will give her this though. I was saving money for an engagement ring for my wife. And I think I had like $600 saved up at the time. And she called me over to her house, and there's always an angle. And she's like, do you have any money I can borrow? And like, I felt bad. And I gave her my $600. Wow. However, terrible person that she is, about a year or two later, she got a slip and fall check and she paid me back.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it stunned me, man.
Okay.
Well, it goes around, slips and falls around. That's great. I like this. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming. If you guys don't know Mike Rainey, you need to get out there. Delco Dirtball on Percs, both books. You got 2 podcasts where you got Dad Meat and you have Little Stinkers.
Yep.
Which Little Stinkers is a really cool concept because you talk a lot about like serial killers and stuff like that on that. Or
yeah, we do, and it's I think I don't know. I have a soft spot for awful people. So I think like there's never like an emphasis on, I never want to post like gory pictures or shit like that. It's just trying to find like something funny in some of the worst people. Like for instance, like Charles Manson, like the way that he got the Manson family mobile was that somebody gave him a piano, and he took this piano and he was going door to door through this neighborhood in Southern California, trying to find a car that somebody would trade him for this piano. So he was able to get this small bus that he traded for this piano. So like, to me, that shit's funny, but that's something that you probably won't hear about if you watch a documentary on the Manson family, where John Wayne Gacy managing a Kentucky Fried Chicken before he ended up murdering boys that worked for.
Oh, I was just listening to Two Bears One Cave, and they did the last meals. I mean,
oh god,
so they John Wayne Gacy,
shrimp, fried chicken, KFC,
KFC.
Oh my god, what would your last meals be?
Oh man, probably cheesesteak.
Yeah,
because I don't eat many of them. That's why I haven't had cheesesteak.
I would go Chinese. I'd like a wonton soup, some General Tso's, some fried rice, but I'd want it to be like hibachi, like when they do it on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
dump it in your lap, and when they turn on the electric chair, fry it for you.
Sock me, hit me with that guy.
Flipping shrimp into your mouth in the chair.
Oh my god, yeah. That would be that. Yeah, that's like that might be the only way I can get off now. I don't know.
I really appreciate this. Has been an awesome conversation, man. It's awesome talking with you guys.
This is probably, I would say, this is one of our stronger episodes.
I love it.
And if anybody's watching, if you go to onperks.com Which camera am I looking at?
You're straight up
Okay.
that way.
Yeah, if you go to onperks.com, all my stuff's available there. Yeah, my books are there. Also, if you want to send a sweet message to your husband, your wife, a friend, I also record messages in the style of Mel Gibson's voicemails. And for $25, I drive my car to the end of the street and I sit at the park and I scream into my phone to record these messages. So I'm recording one when I get home, and I'll happily do one of those for you. There's nothing that I won't do for money.
Dude, thank you, Mike. Dude,
Thank
for
you,
coming
guys.
on. This was great.
This was a blast,
This is
man.
good.
You guys
This
have
is
a great
good. I like
podcast, man.
All right, well, see you guys next time.
Later, guys.
Seriously, Dad?
Seriously?
Thank you for listening to the Dads. For once, give these daddies a break. And maybe follow, subscribe, like, and comment to the Dads on Instagram and YouTube at Seriously Dad Pod. Rate and review Seriously Dad Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Seriously, Dad?
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is comedian Neil Wood, and
Adam Nutter.
we can't do it like that. You have to sound like a human being. That's insane. Because I'm realizing how little you're talking.
Adam Nutter.
I could just take, if you just want me to, honestly, you know what we need to do is you just need to get that clean,
Adam Nutter.
and then I'll just pop it in wherever I need to. But
Adam Nutter. Let's do that.
come listen to the Cult of Us podcast. That's our promo.
Adam Nutter.
A Drop Tent Media Network podcast. Go to droptent.com or search Cult of Us podcast on your favorite podcast platform.
This has been a Drop Tent Media production.